Welcome back, guys, to the Extraordinary Self podcast, where we explore the mindset shifts and soul strategies that help us live more freely, deeply, and fully. In today's episode, we're diving into one of the most misunderstood yet freeing concepts, detachment. This took me a long time to comprehend, to assimilate, and to adopt into my life. It was a slow burn, but here I am, totally understanding how valuable it is adopt this concept of detachment. It is a paradox, however, and could be a little confusing for some to understand how this can work in real life. I want you to know that at its core, detachment is about letting go of control. If you're a control freak, hear me out. It's not about letting go of connection, though. It's about showing up fully, but not gripping tightly to how things should turn out. And no, it's not about apathy as well or disengagement. In fact, it's the opposite. Detachment allows us to care more deeply because we're not trying to control the outcome. Let me start with a personal story. When I became a first-time mom, my heart had never been so open. I had dreams for my daughter, hopes for the kind of person she'd become, and also I was plagued with fears about all the things I could not control, everything that could possibly happen in her future. And I quickly learned something essential. I had to love her enough to show it fully, but not so much that I tried to shape every part of her journey. That kind of tight grip wasn't love. It was fear disguised as control, and it created anxiety for both of us. The truth was, I had to learn how to detach, to care without controlling, to guide but not possess, to love her not for who I wanted her to be, but for who she was becoming. That was detachment in its most sacred form. So, what is this concept of detachment? It's about caring deeply without control. It's investment without possession, love without expectation. I heard this description about detachment. It's about releasing your grip so life can flow through you rather than around you. It's about how if we cling too tightly to a specific outcome, we often repel the very things we want. When we're able to detach, paradoxically, we can make more space to receive. Let me give you another simple metaphor in life. When you plant a garden, if you've ever planted anything, you water, you care, but you cannot force the bloom. You can't force the process. And oftentimes, maybe the results will look different than expected. You know, that fruit or that plant or that vegetable will have its own trajectory, and the results can be different than what we hoped for. I recently heard something about detachment that I really love. And it's a 3-step framework that will allow you to realize if you are operating under attachment. We first need to be aware of it. Are we gripping too tightly to something? And we need to also understand that we cannot control everything and that that's absolutely okay. And also, we need to start taking steps forward, but release the expectation about how it all unfolds, right? So it's really about not having an expectation or being so attached to an outcome. These steps really helped me as a parent, but it can also be applied in business, in relationships, in personal growth. There's this middle ground, right? We can't care too much, but we can't also just be apathetic towards things or disengaged. So what's that middle ground? Because detachment doesn't mean we stop caring or taking action. It means we let go of the outcome as our source of motivation. Oftentimes we look at the outcome and that's the thing that's driving us. I want that thing. I want to look that way. I want to get that thing. And that's what's driving us. And we're so attached to the outcome that we start living with that anxiety that comes with it, right? Because we cannot control the outcome of things. Once we let go and we're just in this trajectory, and high achievers, a lot of high achievers and self-improvement junkies get stuck here. You know, we start, for example, meditating to reach a goal, but not to be present. We work out for validation and no longer for joy and health. We check boxes instead of living deeply. Detachment is about finding your motivation independent of the outcome. And a better question to ask is, what am I doing this for? When I ask myself and answer this, and my answers come like this: because I love it, because it brings me energy, it gives me joy or clarity, I know I'm walking in alignment. That's when action becomes sacred and not performative. That's when motivation becomes intrinsic and not attached to praise or outcome. Let's talk about this paradox of detachment, because this is where the gold really is. In detachment, you can care more by needing less. Detachment doesn't mean not caring. It means caring so deeply that you no longer need to control the outcome. Another thing with detachment that we often get wrong is, high achievers or goal focused people, we think that it's going to make us lazy or unfocused, or we're not going to achieve the things that we want because we're letting go of that outcome. When in reality, letting go of that outcome still allows us to take bold action, because we're not focused on the results, but on what needs to get done and what is bringing us joy and what we truly want to do. It's not passivity, it's power, really. We're living in that truth that we want to embrace. And you connect more deeply when you release control. That's true in parenting, in love, and in leadership. Detachment is the art of showing up fully while surrendering completely. The paradox is this: the less you need something to go your way, the more freely you can give yourself to it. That's a beautiful experience. Once you live in that space, that energetic space, life just becomes a little bit different. And for me, it was so, how can I say, it just made me live a little bit lighter, right? A little bit brighter in my life. So here are a few simple practices to help you live with more detachment. I want you to pause. When you feel stress creeping in, ask yourself, am I trying to control or am I trying to connect? When I look at my daughters, when I think about raising them, I know that there's so many ways things can go in life for them. But I release that, right? And this is a mantra that I live with. I release the outcome and I trust the process. We can start practicing this with little micro detachments, right? We can practice with small things. For instance, when somebody maybe leaves a text on read, just detach from it. Don't make a bigger deal than what it is. Can you just let go? Or maybe a plan that changes, a workout that feels off. Let it go and watch your peace grow. Don't give so much meaning to everything. Just let it be. Let just be in the present, and you don't have to overanalyze or think about it. And when you start detaching in these little micro places in your life, you can apply that to bigger concepts, bigger experiences in your life. When we are also like joy driven and we take that action because we simply want to, because we enjoy them, not everything necessarily needs to be optimized or monetized in our lives. I really just love going towards the enthusiasm, something I am enthusiastic about pursuing, and just try doing it without knowing what the outcome is. And really, for me, this podcast is one of those experiments of detachment. I have no expectation, really. I'm just following what my heart is telling me to do, and something that I'm truly finding joy in doing. And so the outcome will show itself. Last year, I had this realization, right? Letting go isn't like floating away or like not being engaged, right? It's coming more present or dropping into the present moment. Because when we grip tightly to how life should go, we disconnect from how life is really unfolding right before our eyes. True detachment isn't escapism. It's really the courage to meet reality without needing to bend it. We often think we'll feel more in control by holding tighter, but freedom comes when we loosen the grip. It's this vibe. I call it a vibe. And to live there is not always easy. I'm not always saying like I perpetually live in this state of detachment with everything, but I can check myself enough to know when fear is creeping in, when my controlling desires are coming and surfacing, and when it's not really about detachment. I can tell. There's a few easy places that we can identify in our life where we can attach very easily and have trouble detaching. One of that is parenting, right? Wanting our children to reflect our values and avoid all pain. We really have a difficult time in detaching all these things from our role as parents. Oftentimes demonstrating control. We want to control their outcome, their lives, their choices, etc., etc. In relationships, we sometimes want to change or fix a partner instead of accepting them, like fully accepting. In career, we maybe want like recognition or status or results to feel worthy. And maybe in social media, you can get caught in the loop of likes and comments and validation. Why are you there? Why are you in that space? Ask yourself. Health and fitness, maybe we become obsessed with metrics instead of enjoying movement and vitality and the gift of health. In personal growth, we can start measuring our worth by how productive we are, how much progress spiritually we're making. And in our daily life, we can start also over controlling things, over planning, over scheduling, needing things to go just right because if we plan them, they're going to go exactly how we want them to. Each of this is an opportunity to ask, am I attached to the result or invested in the moment? Attachment is control. Detachment is trust. When we detach, we don't float away. We drop in. We become present. We become powerful and free. So ask yourself this week, am I gripping too tightly? And what would looseness feel like here? Remember, expect nothing, receive everything. Last year, I wrote an article on this very topic, and I want you to understand that everything that you give, you should give freely without expectation for return. When you live like that, it's not that you're not going to get things in return, because you truly do. When you give the world love, you get more love in return. When you come with brightness, you get more brightness in return. When you seek adventure and thrill, you will receive that back. It's just what you give out to the world that does come back to you in many ways. But when you do it not expecting anything or someone to meet that need, you live freer. And you detach from people's opinions, you detach from what they think of you, you detach from an experience and what it means. You just let it be sometimes. You don't overthink it, analyze, or make a conclusion of that necessarily and hold on to it tightly. You kind of live like, well, maybe it was that, maybe it was. It's a vibe. If this resonated with you, thank you so much for being here. Share this with someone who is learning to let go. And please leave a review. Share this on Instagram, tag me, message me. I would love to hear how you are practicing this concept of detachment or where you're having trouble. Send me a message. Until next time, stay extraordinary by letting go.